Welcome to World at Work TV. I'm Allison Avalos, and I'm here today with Bonnie Schindler of Vivient Consulting, and we're talking about the recently published survey on incentive pay practices at private companies that World at Work and Vivient have partnered on for many iterations. Bonnie, start off by talking a little bit about that survey, what's included in it, and how it's evolved over the years.
We started the surveys back in 2007 with World at Work, and it was interesting because we initially wanted to reach out to for-profit private companies, and what we found was when we received the responses, actually a number of nonprofit and government organizations responded as well, and over time we have evolved. We do it as one survey to World at Work members, but we actually publish two different reports, one for the private companies and one for nonprofit and government organizations too.
Talk about any trends over the years with regards to short-term incentives. What's changed, and anything that you think is kind of a long-term change?
So a statistic that we've tracked that we have always found very interesting is how much for-profit companies spend on incentives as a percentage of their operating income. And over the iterations, it's been incredibly consistent. And this year, at the 75th percentile, it was 14% of operating income, whereas in the past, every other iteration, it was 11 or 12%. So I think what we're seeing is that some of the private companies are really trying to compete for talent with their public company counterparts to get the best and the brightest.
One of the interesting findings in the most recent iteration is that many organizations are saying that they think that their annual incentive plans could be more effective. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was actually interesting to us because the for-profit companies had lesser satisfaction with their incentive plans than the nonprofit and government organizations did. And the for-profit companies, the key things that they were struggling with from a plan design issue was the risk-reward trade-off, or how much you pay relative to the performance. With regard to discretion, the companies are struggling with that because you want to maintain the credibility with the recipients of the incentives, but also sometimes extraordinary circumstances occur where you need to have some sort of discretion upward or downward. So that's something that we have seen in the survey and also with our clients. And the last area that private companies were having indicated that they could do better at was communication of their incentive plans to employees.
As you see these kinds of concerns, any suggestions for those out there who can identify with those struggles or even consistently would say, yeah, these are kind of always our top challenges? What would you recommend to those organizations?
No, I think what would be helpful for those organizations is if you keep seeing that you're having the same issues and struggling in the same areas, it would be helpful to step back and maybe pull together a group within the organization to take a look at these issues, or even talk to some employees and try to maybe just step back and take a look at whether you need to refine some of the design features in your plan to address those issues. The plans evolve over time, so it may be time to go to the next level with your plan design.
Sure, not just stay with what you've always done,
right,
and accept
right.
the same challenges that you always have.
Exactly.
What are we seeing on the long-term incentive side?
On long-term incentives, well, cash continues to dominate. That's something we've seen through the years. The majority of the companies are offering a cash-based long-term incentive plan, so that could be a multi-year bonus plan, like over, say, 3 to 5 years. One interesting thing this year, actually, that we saw was that there was an uptick in the use of stock options, which was interesting. So what we think that could indicate is some companies may be preparing for a value realizing event, such as an IPO or a sale, and they want to come up with some way to motivate and reward the individuals who are participating in that, particularly at the executive and management level.
At the beginning of our conversation, you talked about some unexpected interest from nonprofits and governments and even some family-owned. So this year we were able to actually do a cut of data specific to family-owned businesses. Talk about the findings there.
We actually added that as a demographic question because all of a sudden in our work we ended up having a lot of inquiries from family-owned businesses. So we thought, well, let's put this in and just see what they think. So a third of our respondents actually on the private company side are family-owned companies. And we saw two key differences there. One was that the family-owned companies spend more on the short-term incentives, and we really think this is because they are trying to hire in talent to work with the family to help manage the business, and they may be offering more lucrative short-term incentives. And along with that, the second key finding on the long-term incentive side is that the family-owned companies are far less likely to share real equity with the executives and management, so they focus far more strongly on the cash-based incentives, and they actually use phantom equity, such as a stock appreciation right that would track the underlying value of the stock, but it's not a real unit. Again, it's more of a cash-based unit.
So once again, a lot of interesting findings contained within the survey.
Yes.
Thanks,
yes.
Bonnie. For World at Work TV, I'm Allison Avalos.